The news hit Australia like a shockwave. Chinese warships and spy ships were now a regular presence just off the coast. What once seemed unthinkable was now a daily headline, a new chapter in Australia's story unfolding right on its doorstep. Headlines blared warnings. Chinese spy ship looms off Australian coast. Beijing's warships circle continent. The media was relentless, amplifying the sense of urgency and uncertainty that swept across the nation. For many, this felt like history repeating itself. But it was happening now, in real time, on their screens and in their lives. The echoes of past threats were suddenly very present, and the comfort of distance was shattered. An Australian patrol boat spotted a Chinese intelligence ship, bristling with antennas, methodically circling the continent and lingering near key military sites. Every movement was calculated, every approach deliberate, as if mapping out Australia's vulnerabilities. This was no accident. It was a clear message from Beijing. We can reach you. The intent was unmistakable, a show of strength and reach that could not be ignored. The strategic comfort of distance was gone. The dragon was at the fence. The symbolism was powerful, and it resonated deeply with Australians who had long felt protected by the vastness of the ocean. Sometimes it was a lone spy ship, other times a full task force, destroyer, frigate, and support vessel sailing past Sydney and Melbourne. The sight of foreign warships against iconic skylines was both surreal and sobering, a reminder that the world had changed. The Royal Australian Navy was on constant alert, logging every move, every signal, every change in course. The tension was palpable as crews worked around the clock, knowing that vigilance was now a permanent state. It was a tense, silent dance at sea, where one misstep could have real consequences. Every maneuver was watched, every signal analyzed, as both sides tested each other's resolve. Suddenly the public was asking, what does China want? Is this just posturing, or something more? Conversation shifted from sports and weather to strategy and security, as uncertainty crept into daily life. The old certainties were gone, replaced by a new era of competition. Military drills became more frequent, and technology advanced at a dizzying pace, as both sides prepared for an uncertain future. Australia, long protected by geography, now found itself on the front line of a new great game. The Pacific, once a vast moat, was now a chessboard for global powers, and Australia was a key piece. The sight of those gray hulls was more than a military maneuver, it was a wake-up call. Families gathered on beaches, watching the horizon with a mix of fear and fascination, realizing that their world had changed overnight. The nation was forced to confront a new, uncertain reality. Town halls filled with anxious voices, and leaders faced tough questions about how to keep Australia safe in a world where old rules no longer applied. The Pacific was no longer a buffer, it was a battleground for influence. Warships from many nations now crisscrossed the waters, each one a symbol of shifting power and rising stakes. Australia's era of strategic comfort was over. The nation stood at a crossroads, facing a future where vigilance, resilience, and unity would be more important than ever before. When we place the two navies side by side, the scale of the naval balance becomes truly daunting. The vastness of the Pacific is matched only by the disparity in maritime power between these two nations. China's navy now stands as the world's largest, fielding over 370 ships and submarines. This formidable force includes advanced aircraft carriers, powerful destroyers, and a growing fleet of nuclear-powered submarines, all designed to project Chinese influence far beyond its shores. New warships roll out of Chinese shipyards at a pace unmatched since World War II. The sheer speed and scale of China's shipbuilding program is reshaping the balance of power in the Indo-Pacific, with new vessels joining the fleet almost every month. Australia's navy, by contrast, is modern, well-trained, and technologically advanced, but it is small, with about 45 ships. Its focus is on defense, maritime security, and supporting coalition operations with allies. For every Australian warship, China can deploy a dozen, creating a numerical advantage that is hard to ignore in any potential confrontation. In the skies above the sea, China's naval aviation boasts hundreds of modern jets and bombers. With multiple aircraft carriers, China can project air power far from its own coastline, extending its reach deep into the Pacific. Australia, meanwhile, relies on land-based aircraft, advanced surveillance planes, and helicopter carriers. While these assets are effective for regional defense, they lack the global reach and flexibility of a carrier-based air wing. This overwhelming imbalance in numbers and reach shapes every encounter at sea, making each meeting between Australian and Chinese vessels a high-stakes affair. To offset this gap, Australia invests heavily in rigorous training, cutting-edge technology, and crucially, its alliance with the United States, participating in joint exercises and sharing intelligence. Yet China's rapid naval expansion is designed to challenge and potentially overwhelm that reliance, aiming to tip the strategic balance in its favor. This raises a critical question. How does Australia defend its interests when its largest trading partner is also its greatest strategic rival? The answer is complex and fraught with risk. In this new era of maritime competition, the stakes for Australia, and the entire region, have never been higher. For the crew of HMS Parramatta, routine patrols turned into high-stakes missions. Their task shadow a Chinese naval task force, destroyer, frigate, and supply ship, moving deliberately through the Coral Sea. Australian sailors watched Chinese drills, both sides locked in a tense, silent standoff. Overhead, a P-8A Poseidon circled, gathering intelligence. Australia's message was clear: we're watching, and we're ready. Every maneuver was analyzed. Was it a test, a provocation, or just routine? This was the new normal: less humanitarian work, more frontline vigilance. China insisted these were routine exercises, but the routes, near sensitive areas, told another story. For Australia, it felt like a deliberate push to normalize a Chinese military presence. The Indo-Pacific had become a chessboard, and every move mattered. The stakes, sovereignty, security, and the balance of power. Beyond warships, China's influence in the Pacific took a softer form. In Tonga, Chinese-funded buildings, roads, and convention centers transformed the capital. Loans and aid projects brought visible improvements: new ferries, scholarships, and pandemic supplies. China's stadium diplomacy won hearts and minds, contrasting with what many saw as slow responses from Australia and New Zealand. Political elites were courted with trips to Beijing and promises of partnership. China's aid came with few strings, just recognition of the One China policy. This charm offensive was strategic economic partnership today, potential leverage tomorrow. By becoming indispensable, China gained influence and access in a region of growing importance. The silk glove of development opened doors that warships alone could not. In Tonga's bustling markets, opinions on China were as varied as the goods for sale. Some locals welcomed the changes, while others voiced quiet concerns about what was unfolding in their homeland. For many Tongans, the arrival of new roads, gleaming buildings, and modern infrastructure made daily life easier and gave local businesses a much-needed boost. The pace of development was faster than anything they'd seen before, but beneath the surface, local workers noticed that most of these projects were staffed by imported Chinese labor. Few jobs or valuable skills were left behind for Tongans, leaving many feeling excluded from their own country's progress. Some felt sidelined, watching as the biggest benefits seemed to flow to Chinese companies and workers, rather than to the local community. Journalists and academics began to worry about the long-term consequences. What would happen when the generous loans that funded these projects eventually came due? Would Tonga be able to pay them back? Tonga's debt to China was massive for such a small economy, raising fears that Beijing could gain quiet but powerful leverage over the nation's decisions. The fear was real. Today's gifts could become tomorrow's chains, binding Tonga's future to China's interests and limiting its freedom to choose its own path. Tonga's leaders faced a tough balancing act. On one side, they had traditional ties to Australia and New Zealand, partners who had supported Tonga for decades. On the other, China offered fast action and visible results, making it hard to say no. "We're caught between giants," one official admitted, describing the pressure of navigating powerful interests from all sides. The pressure was real. Accept the help and risk losing control, or refuse and risk being left behind in a rapidly changing world. Every day the path forward grew harder to walk, as Tongans weighed the promise of development against the risk of dependence. Pacific leaders across the region faced similar dilemmas, forced to navigate competing powers while trying to secure a better future for their people. The stakes were nothing less than sovereignty and self-determination, the right to decide their own destiny. The dilemma was clear: embrace development and risk dependence, or protect independence and risk being left behind. Tonga's story was a warning for the entire Pacific region, a reminder that every gift can come with strings attached, and every choice shapes the future. Australian officials spoke carefully about Chinese warships: calm, professional, and neutral. "We track them, we maintain sovereignty," said the Navy chief, projecting confidence. Privately, defense analysts warned of gray zone tactics, constant probing, cyber attacks, and a push to exhaust Australia's resources. The goal changed the status quo without firing a shot. Beijing dismissed concerns, insisting its ships were on routine missions, accusing Australia of Cold War thinking. Chinese media painted Australia as a US pawn, stirring up trouble with its biggest trading partner. The message: Chinese warships are normal for a major power. No cause for alarm. Each side tried to control the narrative, shaping public perception at home and abroad. The real battle was over meaning, not just military moves. Words, as much as warships, defined the contest. Debt-trap diplomacy, China's loans for big projects, was a growing Western concern. If a country can't repay, China could demand strategic concessions, control of a port, or political support. Tonga owed over $100 million to China, huge for its tiny economy. Debt restructuring offered relief, but dependency grew. Critics pointed to Sri Lanka's Hambantota port, handed to China after loan defaults, as a cautionary tale. Australia and the US feared a similar scenario in the Pacific: ports or airfields under Chinese control. China denied any predatory intent, calling the debt trap idea a smear. Officials insisted loans were for development, not leverage, but the anxiety remained. Indebtedness meant influence, and influence could shift the region's balance. The Pacific's future was increasingly shaped by financial ties. Strategic analysts warned the risk of conflict is rising. China's military buildup and assertiveness, combined with great power rivalry, created a volatile environment. "We're in a classic pre-war period," said one retired general. "A miscalculation at sea or in the air could spark a crisis." Taiwan remained the flashpoint. Any conflict there could draw in the US and Australia. Chinese naval activity near Australia was seen as preparation mapping, testing, rehearsing for possible intervention. Even a small Chinese base in the Pacific would cross a red line for Canberra and Washington. Australia was shifting its defense focus, acquiring nuclear submarines, preparing for high-intensity conflict. The hope was for peace, but the nation was preparing for war. The message: vigilance is essential, because the stakes are existential. With Chinese warships now a familiar sight, Australia faces a defining challenge. Military readiness is essential, modernizing forces, strengthening alliances, and deterring aggression. But an arms race alone risks disaster. Diplomacy is equally vital. Open lines with Beijing can prevent miscalculation and build trust. Australia's prosperity is tied to China, but its security depends on the US. Navigating this dilemma requires public understanding and nuanced statecraft. The future isn't set. Choices in Canberra, Beijing, and Washington will shape the Indo-Pacific century. Australia must steer a steady course, prepared for the worst, working for the best. The region is being reshaped before our eyes. The watch on the high seas continues. The challenge: defend sovereignty, maintain peace, and secure a future in turbulent waters. The stakes: prosperity or rivalry, stability or conflict. The world is watching Australia's next move,